looked like kids to me. Just like Jamal had said. One of them fired from the hip as he went, not even trying to keep covered. Then they all opened up on us. It was like some kind of Old West shootout. They appeared to have no fear at all. No concept of dying. Bree and I dropped down and fired back from ground level. Bullets sparked off the asphalt in trucks in the dark, but we couldn't see who he was shooting at now or where they were headed. Kids, Bree said. Killers, I corrected her. A second heavy exchange of fire came from the next row over of trucks. One of the team members, Art Shiner, shouted that he'd been hit too. Then everything was quiet again. Shiner? I radioed. He didn't respond. McDonald? No response either. Sampson, we need medical with that backup. On its way. I'm coming down now. Stay up there, John. We need a spotter more than ever. Stay where you are. Sir? It's Connors. He was the rookie of the group, and his voice was tight. I found Jamal. He's down. There's a lot of blood. Stay with him, but watch yourself. 2204. It was Frank Niccolo. Shiner's here. He's down. No pulse. I think he's gone. Then suddenly, there were more shots. Chapter 17. We were up and running again. 2 officers had been shot, and an unknown number of assailants were at the service plaza. A second ambush opened up on us. A bullet streaked by my face. Someone had fired from the roof of a tractor trailer as he ran down the length of it. I shot back and couldn't tell if I'd hit the sniper or not. Everything was happening like fireworks, there and gone. Then quiet again. What the fuck? Somebody shouted on radio. He didn't explain. Couldn't? Alex, Bree. It was Sampson again. By the pumps, to your left. I ran out to where I could see the main buildings. 3 of the gunmen had a good 50 yards on us and were running toward the gas canopy, firing as they went. They had black balaclavas pulled over their heads. 2 were short. Boys, if the height was any indication. A larger person, huge, was in the first position. Was that the gang leader? Ellie's killer? It had to be him, didn't it? I wanted to get the bastard no matter what else happened tonight. Innocent people ran screaming away from their cars and semis. There was too much confusion for us to fire. A woman in a red parka and baseball cap went down, clutching her stomach. The large man shot her a second time. Was he crazy? Then he plucked the gas nozzle out of her SUV. He definitely was mad. He locked it in the on position, then left the gas running on the ground. Then he stepped over to the next car in line and did the same thing. His team of boys was getting clear of the area, running and shouting as if this was some kind of out-of-control sports match. His pistol was pointed at the pooling gas, and that was all the warning I needed. "Hold fire! Hold fire!" I yelled, then pulled up short of the pumps. "Bree, take Brighton. Go around the other side. Niccolo, get somebody to shut those things off." The large man held a third nozzle in his hand now, just letting the gasoline flow onto the pavement. I could smell the vapors, even at this distance. What the hell was he thinking? "Just put it down! Walk away!" I shouted. "We won't fire on you!" He didn't move, just stared back at me. No fear in him. A second later, someone shouted behind him. Then came 3 short blasts of a car horn. Finally, he did what I'd asked. He kept his gun pointed my way, but set the gas nozzle down. He backed away slowly, moving out of the light of the canopy. We were clear. He was leaving. Then several shots were fired out of the darkness. It was him, the bastard. A wall of flame burst from the concrete. It almost seemed like a magic trick. In seconds, the forecourt was burning, flames licking under and around the empty cars. A white Corolla went up first. It exploded right where the large male had been standing a few seconds ago. Then a black pickup on the other side of the pumps caught fire. "Clear! Clear! Clear! Clear!" I was shouting and waving both arms over my head, trying to get everybody, civilians and police, away from there. That's when the first pump head blew. And then, Armageddon in Virginia. Chapter 18. The plaza with its lines of gas pumps exploded from underneath, the pavement rising like a carpet being rolled. Flames shot at least 80 feet into the air, a ball of bright yellow and orange followed by a heavy black coat of smoke. Burning vehicles rolled around like toy cars. Truckers and families fled screaming from the restaurant, where the fire had already spread, and with it, the panic. I was running as close to the blast site as I could. Heat singed my face, my eyes, and my hearing felt like it was half gone. Up ahead I could see two SUVs speeding out toward Route 50. They were getting away. I spotted Bree coming around from the far side of the building and breathed a sigh of relief. She was all right. She ran toward my car, and so did I. I got in the R350 and punched it up to 90 in a hurry. For a few uneasy seconds there was nothing ahead of us, nothing I could see. There! Bree pointed at the two SUVs. They must have spotted us because just then they peeled off from each other. The first Land Cruiser went left, the second SUV turned right. I followed the lead vehicle, hoping I had made the right choice. Chapter 19. I barreled down a dark two-lane road, gaining ground quickly on the Land Cruiser. A deep drainage culvert curled along our left side. I came up on the cruiser's taillights, and the driver appeared to panic. Suddenly it flared to the right, then cut back nearly 90 degrees without slowing. Then the Land Cruiser flew straight toward the ditch. For a second I thought he'd make it across. The Land Cruiser had air under it, but the front end came down too fast. It crashed hard and loud, the undercarriage fracturing. The front wheels were lodged into the far bank, the rear tires continued to spin fiercely. Bree and I were already out of our car and crouched behind the open doors. "Out of the vehicle! Now!" I yelled across the ditch. Finally, I could see bodies moving inside the Land Cruiser. The adult was in the driver's seat. Next to him was someone barely tall enough to be seen. The smaller figure reached through the passenger side window. He put one palm on the roof, then the other. He started lifting himself up and out. "Down on the ground! Now!" Bree shouted at him. "Get down, I said." But he didn't. He torpedoed himself up onto the roof, skinny and cat-quick. His gun was out now, pointing our way. He slid across the roof, firing 3 quick shots at us. We fired back. A round caught him and he dropped to the ground, but not before he'd given the adult enough cover to get outside. The driver's door was open. I couldn't see the large man, but I knew he was getting away. Bree stopped beside the kid. I kept going, down into the ditch, then up the other side. I thought there were woods beyond the gully, but now I saw there was just cedar screening and tall weeds. Suddenly I heard the rattle of a chain-link fence. The large male was climbing it. By the time I pushed through the trees, he was over the top and running across the rear yard of some kind of storage facility. I leveled my Glock against the chain-link, then emptied the magazine. He was too far away. I didn't think I'd hit him, and then he turned. He waved contemptuously, then disappeared like a cat into the darkness. I called in the location and then ran back to see about Bree. She was still crouched near the ground, right where I had left her. She'd put her jacket over the dead boy's face. It was an odd thing for a cop in a shootout to do, but Bree liked to go her own way. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't look up. "He was maybe 12, Alex. Maybe that old. He ran suicide for the prick adult." "Was he alive when you got to him?" I asked her. Bree nodded. "He say anything?" "Yeah." She finally looked up at me. "He told me to fuck myself. His last words on this earth." Chapter 20. I didn't sleep more than a couple of hours that night. An officer and 2 civilians were dead. Not to mention one of the boy killers, the world's youngest terrorist, according to a Washington Post headline the next morning. On top of everything else, I had an 8 o'clock psych client to see at St. Anthony's. Ever since the Tyler Bell case the year before, when I was literally stalked in my own office, I'd had to seriously reevaluate my life. The upshot? I decided my criminal cases were too high profile too often for me to keep the private in private practice anymore. Now I saw only 2 or 3 patients a week, usually pro bono, and I was satisfied with that. Most days, anyway. But I didn't want to see this particular patient. Not today. It was ironic that I had a session with Bronson Pop Pop James that morning. He was 11 years old and probably the most advanced sociopath at that age I'd ever seen. 4 months before, he'd made headlines when he and a 17-year-old beat 2 homeless men half to death. They had used a cinder block. It was Pop Pop's idea. The district attorney hadn't figured out how to try the case yet, and Bronson was being held in juvenile custody. The one thing he had going for him was a very good social worker from corrections, who made sure he got to his appointments with me. At first, I thought it best to keep the events of the last night out of my head. Once the session got going, though, I changed my mind. "Bronson, you hear about what happened at the Service Plaza in Virginia last night?" He sat across from me on a cheap vinyl couch, fidgeting the whole time, hands and feet always in motion. "Yeah, right, I heard. They was talking about that shit on the radio. What of it?" "The boy who died. He was 12. Bronson grinned and put 2 fingers to his head. "Heard he got Xboxed." His confidence was prodigious. It gave him a strange adult quality, while his feet dangled about 6 inches off the floor in my office. "You ever think something like that might happen to you?" I asked him. He snorted. "Every day. It's no thing." "That's okay with you, though? Makes sense. That's how the world should be?" "That's how the world be." Bam! "So then," I looked around the room and back at him, "why bother to sit here and talk to me about it? That doesn't make much sense to me." "'Cause that bitch Lorraine fucking make me come." I nodded. "Just because you come here doesn't mean you have to say anything." "But you do. You talk to me. Why do you think that is?" He made a thing of getting all impatient. "You the witch doctor. You tell me." "You envy kids like the one who died? Working for a living? Running around with guns?" He squinted at me, pulled the LeBron James Cleveland Cavaliers sweatband around his head a little lower. "What do you mean?" "You know. Are you jealous of them?" He smiled again, but only to himself. Then he slouched down on the couch and reached out with a toe to casually tip over the orange juice I'd given him. It spilled across the table between us. "Yo, they got any Skittles in the machine downstairs? Go get me some Skittles." I did no such thing. After the session, I escorted Pop Pop out to his social worker and told the boy I'd see him on Friday. Then I went home and picked up Nana. We went to the Cox family funeral together. We held each other and cried with everybody else. I didn't care if people saw me cry anymore. I just didn't care. If they were friends, they would understand. If they weren't, what did it matter what they thought of me? That philosophy, to give credit where credit is due, was a Nana-ism. Chapter 21. This is Detective Alex Cross. I'm with the Metro Police here in Washington. I need to speak with Ambassador Njoku, or his representative. It's important. Very important. Late that night, I was in the car with Bree, speeding to the Bubble Lounge in the heart of Georgetown. 4 people were dead at the club. 2 were Nigerian citizens, and 1 was the son of the ambassador. Advance reports had 21-year-old Daniel Njoku as the gunman's primary target. That meant one thing to me. The Njoku family didn't need just notification. They might also need protection, if it wasn't already too late. So far, all of the gang's murders had involved families. A night deputy from the Nigerian embassy was on the line with me. I kept one ear covered, trying to hear what she was saying above the wail of Bree's siren.
"Sir, I am very sorry, but I will need more information than simply—"
"This is an